we're good?
Yeah.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Antoine?
Here.
Mrs. Bonnet?
Here.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Dr. Demas?
Here.
Mrs. Eichler?
Here.
I'm here, and Mr. Young?
Present.
Wonderful.
Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? The flag is behind you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Before we make that move to approve it, I just have something I would like to amend.
We need to have a motion on the table, and then first, that's how.
That's
Yeah. So do you want to make the motion to approve?
I'll make the
ag-
motion.
Okay.
Support.
And a support? Okay. So now, what would you like to change?
I mentioned this a couple days ago when our packet came out. I would just like to look at item number E under regular action items, resolution number 48, and I was hoping, we're going to suggest that we separate those out into two resolutions since it's two different curriculums.
Okay. Did I miss
So that
an
we're
email? Did you send me?
I sent it to Dr. Robinson and Ms. McFarland.
Oh, okay. So,
We can do that, or if you don't, that's fine. I just, I would like to see those separated out so that we're voting on them as individual items and not one big lump.
Since they are 6 through 8 and then 9 through 12, two separate curriculums, I support that.
I do as well.
I think they should be separate.
okay. So resolution 48 would be, based on what you're saying,
Resolution 48, yep.
Mrs. Bonnick, I think we can probably stay within the resolution number,
Okay.
but add a A and a B,
And B?
if that helps in terms of the, the agenda.
sure. And A would be, just so we have it when we
6
get
through
there.
12, or, I'm sorry, 6 through 8.
6 through 8 would be amplify, and 48B would then be into literature for 9 through 12.
9 through 12, literature.
All right, are there other changes to the agenda?
We have a closed session, Mrs. Bonnick, with no action after, so our traditional polling board discussion for the good of the district and the final public comment up before M, and then we'll go into closed session and just adjourn afterwards.
Sure. Anything else? All right. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda with those two changes, three changes technically?
Second?
Moved by Dr. Demas and seconded by Eichhorst.
Okay. So
All
that
in
would be-
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Moving on to presentations, can we have our budget hearing? Public comment.
So just as a formality, we'll enter into the budget hearing. Mrs. Lasky has a presentation, and then we have a public comment section at the end of the budget hearing specific to what she presents. Then we would close the budget hearing and resume back into the regular agenda. All right,
Okay,
take it away, Vicki.
all right. So the purpose of the budget hearing is so that we can talk about the budgets that relate to the taxes that will be levied on the tax bill in July. So you'll see me mention some of the tax levies that we will have and the millage rates that we will be requesting on our tax bills. First, we're going to start out with the debt fund. We have $2.7 billion in properties, and all properties are taxed for the debt mills, and we will be levying 3.5 mills in July, and that is the same as last year, so there's no change to that. We have an estimated ending fund balance at the end of this year of a little over $2 million in our debt fund. And in 2025, we'll generate about $9.6 million in revenue. And then the payments for principal and interest next year will be around $9.6 million. So that's closes out the debt fund for us. Sinking fund, that is also levied on all properties. It can be used for new construction and remodeling, technology instruction, repair of school buildings and facilities, instructional student technology, and security equipment. We don't use this, and we cannot use this for salaries and benefits and other equipment and maintenance. We are levying 1.206 mils this year. That's a little bit less than last year because we had a Headley rollback, and that will generate $3.3 million next year. If you remember, this is the last year we levy the sinking fund under the old voter approval, and next year we'll go back to 1.25 mils. So our total debt levy with the debt fund and the sinking fund is 4.706. So just as a district financial overview, our annual budget is a little over $76 million, and our foundation allowance for 22-23 was 9608, and actually that should say 23-24, so I apologize for that. 9608. Our fund balance at the audit last year was 17.44% or $12.3 million. At our amendment, we projected 17.83% or $13.4 million. So what's changed in our final budget is we've had a lot of increase in interest earnings. As you know, interest rates have increased a lot, so we didn't project quite as much as we did earn in interest. We have an increase in transportation fees, so there's been some more transportation that the transportation department's been doing, so those fees have increased. In the state budget changes, we've increased transportation costs. That's a new grant that we got this year. At the amendment, I said we got about $600,000. It actually turned out to be $700,000 when they reconciled that account. The State Aid Foundation had an adjustment, so in total, we had just over $1 million more in revenue than during the amendment. Changes to expenditures. What I do is go through and look at all the building budgets, and I reconcile them. Look at employee stipends, are there any severances for those that are retiring, class size overages, any payment, those types of payments. And then I look at the RVA tuition, dual enrollment, and early college. All those have adjustments at the end of the year. And our legal fees and election costs, we shore that up, and usually it's a lot less than what we've budgeted for. We've also had changes in expenditures, excuse me, for operations and maintenance. We had some vacancies that we budget for that haven't been filled, and miscellaneous supplies that were not spent. In the transportation department, vehicle repair parts and fuel and oil. Fuel's gone down a little bit, so we're not spending quite as much in fuel. So those are things that made changes to our expenditures. So overall, we're projecting that we have $76.3 million in revenue, expenses of $72.8 million in expenses, and our revenues exceed our expenses, we believe, at the end of the year by $3.5 million. So our fund equity, June 30th, 2024, is expected to be $15,864,553, or 21.77%. Okay? Now, a lot of that is a consequence of us getting increases that were extraordinary the last 2 years in our foundation allowance. So we're getting over $400 per pupil. We expect that not to be the same in the coming years. And that's also because we've had those ESSER dollars that we've been able to supplant some of the positions that now are going back into the general fund. So the increase in fund equity is not something we expect to this degree going forward. Okay? So our budget assumption, this is how we start 24-25, and when we work on the budget. Our enrollment assumption, we start with our blended count for this year, which is 5222 based on our April state aid report. Plant Moran Real Point did our enrollment projections of 5,310. We made an adjustment of reducing it by 15 FTEs because young fives didn't quite come in where we thought it was. That may have changed in the meantime, but we've kind of run with this number. So our fall enrollment estimate is 5295 FTEs. If you take 10% of our spring count, is 520, and 90% of the fall count that we expect of 4766, we assume that our enrollment will be 5,286 FTEs. So the legislative proposals that we based our budget on is we went with the governor's, although you can see all three of them here. The governor's budget was an increase of $241 or 2.5% increase, moving that to $9,849 per pupil. The Senate and the House budgets are similar, but not, that, we felt like that was a good, solid, in-the-middle number that we could go with until we got a budget from the state. And as of now, I don't think, Dr. Robinson, we have a budget yet from the state. Pardon me?
It'll be a busy week in Lansing.
Okay, all right. So we're expecting that soon, but we're just going with a guess right now of 241 per pupil. So if we took those assumptions and we plugged them in and came up with some numbers here, we took our 5222 times the state aid increase of 241 students. That gives us $1.2 million additional funding and state aid increase. But if we also take the 64 additional students that we're projecting at the 9849 per pupil, that's an additional $630,000 for a total of almost $1.9 million in additional revenue based on enrollment. Just want to touch base a little bit on our ESSER funding. ESSER 1 and 2 are gone, and those have long been gone. We still have ESSER 3 funding, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of a wrap-up on that. In total, we had $5,667,063 in ESSER funding, broken up into two categories. First was the formula, which was $2.9 million. In our 21 through 23, so I combined a couple years there, we spent $1.3 million on ESSER 3 formula. And this year we spent $1.5 million. Now, this funding ends on September 30th, but we do use some of these funds for summer school. So we're holding back maybe $150,000 to cover the summer school programs. And so we have a little bit to carry forward in our 24-25 balance of about $150,000. Once September 30th is done, we are done with ESSER. And I can't say that I'm not happy about that. I can't wipe the smile off my face. ESSER 3 equalization, or 11T, that was $2.6 million. And the expenditures for 21 through 23 were $1.3 million. And last year we spent $1.1 million in expenditures. So we're leaving a little bit of a fund balance in that one of $188,000. That also is used for summer school and other programs, but also has to be spent by September 30th. So both of those grants are wrapping up. And one of the other grants that we got this year, the 23G Kids Back on Track carryover, we're going to carry over, to 2025, is $558,441, and that helps us with the ESSER cliff, as they call it, and 4 of our 5 math interventionists can now be funded with this 23G Kids Back on Track. So those won't be moving to the general fund for next year. So as we've done in the past, we use our district leadership priorities as our template for coming up with what we'd like to see in the budget. Competitive and sustainable contracts. We have, most of our contracts are settled and we know what those amounts are, so we roll those into the new budget. But we've been working with the teachers union, and I believe you have the paras union approval on your agenda for tonight. So those contracts are also estimated and included in next year's budget. We've included an additional teacher for ELL support and a resource room teacher and 2 paraprofessionals. I believe that's at Hevel Elementary. The RMS transformation support for them to transform into the academies model, and online resources for instructional support in CKLA and other online resources. So our revenues look like this. Local revenues, 18 mills, so the 18 mills that are charged to the non-homestead or levied on the non-homestead properties generate $9.4 million. Other local revenues are $958,000. And our state aid foundation is $42,589,472. We also have some other state aid that comes in the form of grants and categoricals of almost $17 million. And then, of course, our federal grants of $6.4 million. So our total budgeted revenues of $76,329,204 for 2025. Our projected student FTE is 5,286 FTEs at 9,849 per pupil for a total foundation grant of $52,061,814. Minus the local portion, so the state doesn't fully fund the per pupil foundation. The 18 mills that the district generates, that is accounted for. So the state's share is $42,589,472. This is just a pie chart that kind of shows you how reliant we are on the state for our funding. So when the state makes decisions that affect us, it impacts us quite a bit. Local funding is our second largest source, other, and then federal. Expenditure assumptions, this breaks down our expenditures based on the salaries and benefits. As you see, those are the two big buckets of numbers that we have. We are a people business, and that's where we spend most of our money on people and their benefits and retirements. So our total expenditures are expected to be $77,548,380. And this is just a pie chart showing visually how salaries and benefits make up the bulk of our expenditures, and then there's purchase services that come in next, and supplies, and some little bit of capital outlay and other. So our original budget, if you look on the far right, we expect total revenues of $76 million, total expenditures of $77.5 million, and we have excess expenditures over revenues of $1.2 million, with our beginning fund balance estimated to be $15,864,553 based on our final budget projections. We expect our ending fund balance to be $14,645,377, or 18.89% at the end of next year. And I could repeat that, I guess, but the fund equity right there is 18.89%, and that just is a visual of that projection. Okay, Community Service Fund. So the Community Service Fund, revenue $882,734, expenses $1.6 million. We've talked about how we're going to keep an eye on this fund because this we had a lot of state dollars and federal dollars that came into this program, so we expect our fund balance to be $28,322. And then the following year, with some increases in our revenue that we've approved, the board's approved some new fees. In our programs, we expect our revenues to exceed our expenses by $21,565 to increase our fund balance at $49,887. Food service. That started out with a fund balance of $1.1 million. As you might remember, we had excess fund balance. The state told us that we needed to spend some of our fund balance. So we're doing that with some equipment that the board's approved. Revenue started, we project that we will end with $2.9 million in revenue and $3.4 million in expenses, and our revenues will exceed our expenses by, or I'm sorry, expenses will exceed our revenues by $464,000, and we expect our fund balance to be almost $700,000. There are a few things that the food service department would like to buy in the following year. Next year, we expect revenue to be $3.3 million, our expenses to be $3,095,000, and our revenues to exceed our expenses by $250,000. So some of the things that we are thinking about doing is she needs a new food service truck. So those are types of things that will help us get our fund balance down so we don't get another letter from the state and we can not have excess fund balance again. That's a tricky one. The high school bookstore, you just have to approve this budget. It's not one that we bring a lot to the board, but just at the end of the year, the fund balance was $44,712, revenues $89,000 as projected for the end of the year, and expenses $85,000. So revenues exceed expenses by $4,064, and we expect that fund balance to be $48,776. And next year, just a projection that the revenue will be around $50,000, expenses in the neighborhood of $45,000, and revenues to exceed expenses by $5,300, with a fund balance of $54,076. They use their fund balance to buy things to supply their store, so. Then there's a special revenue student activity. So this is a newer fund that you have to approve. This is where the student dollars go in for donations and fundraising and for athletics. Revenues we project at the end of the year will be $2.5 million and expenses $2.6 million. So they're going to use some of their fund balance. And next year, revenues of $1.8 million and expenses of $1.6 million, revenues to exceed expenses by $221,000. So that's just a formality. Those are really student-driven accounts, and we don't typically budget for those. Going forward, we complete the financial audit for fiscal year 2024, and they start that at the end of July, so we should have that probably September. It'll be all complete, and we can report that to the board. We'll continue to monitor the state's budget, and we'll also be on the lookout for the fall enrollment and see if our projections have come in where we thought they would. And I'll take any questions.
Why don't we do questions from the board before we formally do the public comment?
Well, Vicky's been keeping us abreast throughout the year. We
Yes.
also had a facilities or finance of the whole, and we had another budget
Monday.
workshop in the late winter. So I feel there's really no surprises to many of us, but so our lack of questions is because you've versed us very well. So we should open it up to public comment, and that would be anybody who has a comment specifically on the budget and the presentation that Ms. Lasky just did. Crickets. It's kind of nice
them
when
to
we have a little bit of fund equity. We don't always get that joy, so.
So teachers in the back, I'll email you your pop quiz on the budget hearing for tonight, and I'll look forward to you sending that back to me. Bulldog Spotlight, so it's summer, so we don't have a lot of little people here, but we do want to take the opportunity to introduce a couple new district leaders to you. One of those is on the personnel update tonight, and one of those actually was approved back in May. So we'll start with Charlene McVetti. She is the new early childhood supervisor, so she'll be working alongside with Janine Beck in supporting our SAC programs and programming at Croswell. Charlene, why don't you come up if you want to share a word or two with the board, and then we'll give you the infamous row of handshakes and,
All right.
and ask you to
Sounds
wait
good.
for a photo.
No pressure, right? I know I was trying to finagle how I was going to walk across there. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I first want to thank Janine. I know she's not here this evening, but what I've got to know of her, she's a wonderful person, and I am so eager to not just learn from her, but work beside her. I want to thank Dr. Robinson for following through with what Janine wanted and believing in me as well. And I was a Lake Orion Dragon for over 10 years. So I feel like my biggest challenge right now before I start next Monday is to clean out my closet and try to find some Bulldog gear. And I got one tonight, so I'm
There
on
you
my
go.
way. So thank you, and I'm excited to dig in next Monday morning and get
Yes.
started at Croswell.
With
So-
approval, she will actually start
Yeah,
Monday
I
at
will.
summer
I will.
camp.
Very
So, so Charlene, why don't you come and just be welcomed by the board?
You have to pass the quiz first.
Oh, the budget quiz.
Congratulations.
Were there handouts?
And go to downtown FAMS. That's where
Okay.
a lot of summertime Bulldog gear.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, next we have approved back in May. We did not have trouble with the air conditioning night, just to make you feel at home, Amy. Coming across the country recently, back home to Michigan from several years in Arizona, it's my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Amy Wojciechowski, new principal for Amanda Moore Elementary. Amy, if you want to share a few thoughts with the board.
Well, good evening. As Dr. Robinson mentioned, my husband and I just made the trek from the very hot Arizona to be here in the less hot Michigan. So very thankful to be here. In Arizona, I began my teaching career. I taught in Phoenix, and then I became an instructional coach, assistant principal, and then I made the journey out here to continue my principalship. But in that journey and in my search, I really realized that Romeo was home for me. There's many things that Romeo values that I value as a leader. That belief in equity for all students and really holding each other to those high expectations and that buy-in to our family and community. And that's really what sold me on Romeo, was that family. In my conversations with Dr. Robinson, I'm so grateful that we spoke of family, and that's my move back here to be with my dad and my mom, and just to continue to grow with them and grow with my community. So thank you for allowing me this opportunity. Thank you to my Amanda Moore teachers for believing in me and being here to continue as family together. Thank you, Rob, for helping welcome me into the family, and I'm just so grateful to be here. Thank you to my Amanda Moore families and communities. If you're going to watch, hello, thank you for choosing me and believing in me. So thank you, everybody.
All right.
All right, wait, tell us exactly how we pronounce your last name. What's
Okay.
the trick?
All right, so Wojciechowski.
Jahowski.
Wojciechowski. Yep, and you got it.
So what I have said is I'll never question Mrs. Wycheck's name again.
Right.
Because the bar has been raised.
Oh, boy. Congratulations.
Jahowski. Oh, I get it. I get it now, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Did you marry into it?
No, it's mine.
Oh, gosh, okay, congratulations.
It's not much easier.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Let's get a picture, why don't we?
Oh, okay.
Especially cute today, so. Okay, get over there. Rolled out of a hamper and was like. Cute.
Jen, they would like a picture back there. Rob's gonna do it, okay.
That's all right. You've entertained the most compelling part, the budget hearing. Yes.
All right. We will move on. Okay, want to make sure there was nothing more in the Bulldog Spotlight. Tonight's consent action is the approval of the general fund bills, the approval of the financial reports, approval of the wire transfer, approval of the purchasing card, and approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held on May 28th. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Support.
Oh, moved by Antoine, supported by Connor?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. Any questions or concerns on any of those? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That would be 6. Chris stepped out, so, just so you know. 6 voted yes on that one. Well, we're just missing Chris.
Oh, I see.
So it's 6-0.
I understand.
Sorry, okay.
Okay.
All right. Moving on, we have our annual June approvals. Can I have a motion Was the intent of this to do all this in one
Yes.
chunk? It was, okay. So the annual June approvals are the Michigan High School Athletic Association membership for 24-25, Michigan Association of School Boards membership, our virtual online course providers, which includes GenNet, Michigan Virtual, and Lincoln Learning, the renewal of our school resource officer with Macomb County Sheriff's Office for 3 years through 2027, the intent to continue the intergovernmental agreement for the RMS resource officer for the 24-25 school year, the stormwater management consultant annual renewal, which is Arch Environmental, and then also to continue for 1 more year the suspension of the pay to participation fees. So everything else is continuing the membership. Pay to participation is to not collect pay to participate for the 24-25 school year. So can I have a motion?
So we need to make the motion first, because I have comments.
Yeah, yep,
Make the motion first.
yep.
Okay.
And second it, and then we open it.
Got
Yep. So can I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Antoine, support by Connor. Now questions or concerns?
So I have one comment on the pay for participation. I am for this. I think we're in good standing to continue this amazing opportunity for our parents in the district. But I would like to mention, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's $190,000 per year. That's the financial impact. So that's what we normally would be collecting from parents that we are not collecting now.
Correct.
So that's an amazing thing that I think that we're doing for the district. I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned the sheer cost of it, because I didn't realize it was that expensive. I didn't. The other thing is too, I am a no on the MASB membership renewal. So I don't know how that works, but I'm a no on that.
Well, in order to do consent, you would be voting no for all of these items, because that's how we would do it. Or we would need to make a friendly amendment to pull it out, just like we separated the other one. So,
Well, I definitely am for everything else except for number 2. So I would like to make a friendly amendment to pull that out.
and is there something, a concern that you would want others to
I-
know about?
I don't think it's necessary that we're part of an organization for $10,000 a year, that I think we could, if we needed to find resources somewhere else at a cheaper cost or less involved with the political nature of what we're going through as a country.
Got it. Okay, so I guess I just need to hear from the group. Do we want to amend it, or are you okay just voting no on all of these?
Well, for the record, I am definitely not okay with voting no for everything, but if I have to do that to vote no on the MASB membership renewal, I don't think I should have to do that, but that's something that I'm willing to do. But for the record, the resource officer, the pay to play, I want all of those
So,
things.
Mrs. Rice, I would suggest if you make a friendly
Yeah.
amendment to
pull it
have
out.
the
I'd like to.
first resolution be number 1
Yeah.
and number 3 through 7, then the board can get support for that and vote on it, and then we can separately vote for number 2.
Why are they all lumped together? I mean, they're all so vastly different from one another.
Yeah, we just started that because of the length of this meeting, and these things recur every year to provide for the board. Last year, we actually did it as a part of the consent agenda. So it can be separated in isolation, but they come every year. So we just bundled those together for June approvals. Similar to some of the things we approve in the organizational meeting in January, but
Understood.
different items.
Understood.
On number 7, I thought it was $111,000, or it's going to be $190,000.
It's the amount of money that now the general fund supplements that pay for participation used to offset. So the athletic budget is now a full general fund matter, where when we collected pay for participation, it offset the amount, so that the general fund allocation was less.
And that number isn't an exact science always, because
No.
it depends on the number of kids.
No.
But
I
it's a
mean,
lot of money.
Yeah,
It will go up based on the number of contests,
Right.
officiating fees.
right.
Transportation fees, if there's any increase to coaching fees, all of that.
I'm in support of number 7 as well. I always get this question, how is it determined which ones do not fall into that
There,
fee
if the-
waived?
yeah,
Is
if
there,
they're-
is there a hard definition?
This isn't clubs and this isn't club sports.
How, because some of that is, like hockey is obvious, but some of them, like cheer at the middle school level, or cross-country at the middle school is considered not part of it, but high school is. Is there, I'm just, like, I guess the logic behind it, or?
The club sports
club, if it
is the
says
way we
club.
make the delineation.
Okay.
Some club sports participate at the high school level in MHSA
Okay.
competitions. The middle school, of course, do not.
So what's the definition of club?
That is that the members of those teams are actually paying a fee for the club to exist, and which would include the coaching and that.
Does this include the swimmers or swim fees, or do they have fees for swimming?
The high school swim team is included in the athletic budget. The middle school is a club.
Who is responsible for assigning clubs?
Technically, our athletic and activities director oversees it, but the building principals determine the
Oh.
clubs at each. Those sports clubs are overseen by the athletic director.
I
The
see.
building administrators decide. Some of them are specifically mentioned in the teacher's contract, and other are an allotment that can change from year to year based on interest.
So the principal could theoretically deem, say, the swim team at the middle school not a club anymore.
Not
Is
to-
that right?
Not to be funded by the athletic budget, no. No.
Okay.
The principal would not. That's not probably a good example.
I think,
The chess club, green club, some of
I
those
see.
other
Cycling.
activities, that has nothing to do with pay for participate. Pay for participate is athletics.
And it's important, Wayne, just in the way you asked the question, I just want to make sure, this is just the annual pay to participate. That doesn't mean that if I'm a volleyball player, I don't maybe still buy a warm-up, or I don't, there's.
No, this is just the fee.
Yeah, it's
Just the fee.
just the fee. So parents are still, there's still fees involved. So, but I think what I'm hearing you guys say is it's probably a good time to understand, because back in the day, really clubs started when there wasn't widespread interest in the sport. Like cross-country, that one is one that, it's like the little engine that could, right? And you try to get the runners to start earlier, and, it went all the way down to elementary. So, just a report on the history of how it was. It also had to do with balancing and what things you can fund. So what our budget could do, we couldn't take on hockey because hockey is extraordinarily expensive with ice time and those types of things. So I know it's tricky, but maybe a history lesson, a history of Romeo might be helpful.
might not be a bad idea.
Yeah,
'Cause it is a little bit confusing.
It is. It is. So, what I think I heard, and I won't make the motion for you, but I believe Mrs. Rice would like to make a motion to amend the previous motion to include 1, 3 through 7.
Yes.
So 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Correct.
So, are you making that motion?
I am making that motion. I did label it under resolution number 2
Okay.
now.
But-
just
Okay.
For our.
That's okay. And so now I need a second on that.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. So still any other conversations, but right now the conversations would be on 1 through 3 and 7.
So I made the motion on that.
So any other questions on any of those? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So now I need a motion to approve the MASB membership for 24-25.
Motion.
Support? So questions, concerns?
Support.
All right, let's go ahead and do roll call on this one.
Mr. Antoine made the motion.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnet?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Dr. Demas?
Yes.
Mrs. Ikorst?
No.
I'm a no. Mr. Young?
No.
All right. Now we're moving on to informational updates for new business under communications.
I'm sorry, did
Oh.
we yayed to the rest of it?
Yes.
Everyone did. But who motioned and supported on 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7?
Well, you made that motion because it was your
That was-
friendly,
And I
and Ms.
supported.
Ikorst
Oh, I
supported it.
understand, I
Yeah.
understand. Okay, I'm a little backwards here, but.
But do you feel we didn't vote on it?
No, no,
The
no,
second
no, no,
skipped?
no. No,
Okay.
I just want to know to write everything down.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, moving on to informational updates. All right, I see you already did that for me. I'll pull that up. I just want to draw attention to the GSOPS group, which is the Green Space on Prospect Street. Okay? They sent all of us a memo. They wanted me to make sure that everyone was aware of their presentation, their fundraising status, what they're still doing, what they have coming up. It was included in your email. So if you have any questions on that, please let me know. And just to follow up with that as well, now that the budget is done, I do believe, based on our facilities meeting, that Dr. Robinson and Vicki will be sitting down with them to go over the remaining questions and the information that we had gotten from our legal counsel, the appraisal, that type of information. So that will take place coming up here soon. Moving on to the MISD evaluation training, I wrote that down. You may or may not have seen that email came in later today. By law, all board members have to be trained on the evaluation tool that we use to evaluate the superintendent, much like our principals and people that have to do evaluations of staff have to get trained. So the Macomb ISD is holding a training on August 6th. It's a Tuesday from 5 to 7 p.m. So we don't need to talk about it necessarily right now, but watch for an email. We'll probably kind of see how many of us can make that happen, because my understanding would be if we can attend that, we can cross it off the list, and we wouldn't have any fees that we would incur. If we all can't go there, then we're going to have to figure out a way, or find out if they're going to do another training, and that I don't know.
So a reminder, because there's updates, well, because of changes in legislation, there's also updates in this evaluation tool that all the districts in the county use. So this isn't training on the same tool. This is training because the tool has been updated, and required in the legislation is that people be trained, that everyone be accountable to be trained. So I'm not quite sure what the MISD's plan is to offer future trainings, but I know that the law firm that's running that training said they would make council available to do trainings with individual districts or in the future after that. I think this is just an effort to say, with Superintendent Default, hey, we're going to offer this if you can come. We got to get it done at some point, and this would be the opportunity to get it done with other board members from across the county.
When is the deadline for that? Because I already know I have a conflict on that, but I'd definitely be willing to
I
attend.
believe it's September 1st, but don't hold me to that. I will find that
I mean,
question
'cause,
out.
or ask if it's something that
Yep.
can be done via
Sure.
Zoom or Google Meet.
That's it for communications as far as on my end, Mrs.
All
Bonner.
right, moving on to committee reports. I have curriculum up, that was Mike, Rachel, and myself.
Okay, I'll do those. So we met on June 3rd and kind of had a healthy, heavy agenda. A lot of things that we are moving forward or bringing to tonight for approval or not. So the first thing that we discussed was sex ed curriculum for our cognitively impaired programs, grades 3rd grade through 12th. We also looked at the unique learning system curriculum adoption, that is K through 12. And that would be used to individualize content for our resource room students and adjusted study students. We talked about the new Amplify ELA curriculum that was piloted by 3 different teachers, one at 6th grade, one at 7th grade, and one at 8th grade. And a couple of those teachers came and presented, their opinions and how they felt about that, and some questions were asked about the novels and units and how flexible it was and those types of things. We moved on to talking about the pilot process at the high school level, and talked about how they looked at 2 different companies, actually 3 different companies, and sounded, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. McFarland, pretty unanimous on the one that is being brought forth tonight. Let's see. I know there was some discussion in some emails about supplementing funds for novels to bulk up the classroom libraries of teachers at the secondary level. So hopefully you read through that. We looked at a program called Character Strong, which would be for the middle school advisory component, which will look a little bit different in the fall with the rollout of the academy model there. But this would be new curriculum to kind of replace what they've done in the advisory, but sounds like working on similar things, soft skills and interacting and how to interact with your peers and things like that. We talked about the web-based intervention platform, which was kind of, I believe, discussed at our March workshop. Is that correct, Mr. Murray? It was, I remember hearing about it then, kind of introduced to it then, so we talked about that and the need for it and the benefits of that. We also did a follow-up to the April meeting, talking about some concerns that were brought forth regarding TCI history and the CKLA at the elementary level, and kind of how those are being looked at. And that was it.
Any questions, or Mike, anything you want to add? No. All right. Moving on to finance.
I have
Oh,
questions.
you have questions?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Healthy relationships. Could you elaborate?
sure.
The program, it's in a curriculum adoption.
It's specifically for the cognitively impaired, grades 3 through 12. It's a $4,000 expense. We also talked about it at the May workshop. The ASP teachers piloted it. By law, we have to have that curriculum, and so these 2 can fill in the blanks for me, but this helps gear specifically to the cognitively impaired students instead of the broad brush of trying to make the program that we do for all students fit to their level. Am I saying it the right way?
So by law, we have to
That
have
would be
a
Yes.
program.
We have
Yeah,
a program.
We have a program
But
currently.
this would support our teachers further and support those students further to have something that is specific.
At their level that is still age appropriate.
Yes.
And then the ULS is unique learning services,
Systems.
same difference?
So that is an online platform to support our, again, cognitively impaired teachers with for the students of cognitively impaired, teachers of the cognitively impaired students with age-appropriate lessons in the core areas, math, science,
What are we using
English,
now?
and social studies.
What
We
do we
don't
use?
we don't have a curriculum right now. The teachers have to try to adapt things that might be in buildings, things they find online, nothing that is an aligned, sequenced curriculum from elementary intensive resource rooms to middle school to high school adjusted studies programs.
So, in essence, what we're doing now isn't efficient or appropriate or working? Any of those things?
Not very supportive of
It's
them.
not very supportive of our teachers, number one. We're asking them to find things, and
It's not consistent.
it isn't cohesive in the sense that the middle school piece teacher has a true understanding of what the students have done at the elementary level. And it can individualize. So these are students with specific IEPs and academic goals that it's very difficult for a teacher, if I have 12 kids, to have 12 different lessons. And so this helps the teacher streamline and gives them other resources to be able to use to
So-
teach those
so a
students.
It would
Visual.
create efficacy in the classroom.
Yeah, that's a
Certain
good way to put
students
it.
would
Yep.
have their programs, and then
Correct.
the other students. Okay.
Yep.
Just wanted to
And
understand
I think
that better.
a key point too is when we think about in all walks of life of curriculum, when you have different elementary schools, while those groups of teachers might work together and support each other and kind of come out. But when they get to middle school, if there's a flavor over here and a flavor over here and a flavor over here, that poor middle school teacher
But this program
doesn't
will
know.
follow with them.
Well, the point is,
Yeah,
all
it
the
will be
elementary
used
will have it,
K-12.
so it'll be sequenced. So by the time they come to middle school, that middle school teacher can be like, these were all the things that
Understood.
they
Correct.
had.
And then character strong. So, for the record, I have never liked advisory. I don't know what they do in there. I have a child that's gone through 3 years of advisory and has little to say for it, if anything. Soft skills. I think we need to be spending all of our hours at school learning hard skills. And I don't believe that anything with CASEL or this social emotional learning should be overtly educated upon children in one entire classroom period. I want to say for the record that I don't like advisory at all, and I think it needs to be overhauled. So character strong is a difficult sell for me.
Remember, we are overhauling it. That was already, we discussed that.
I went through and looked through character strong as well, and
No, I
CASEL
mean,
is, yeah.
advisory, the whole transformation of the middle school is changing it, remember?
No, I understand that.
Okay.
I understand that. But what I heard from the curriculum subcommittee report out was that the current advisory is being replaced with, correct me if I'm wrong, character strong as its capstone or its curriculum in that environment. That was advisory, but now is called something else, which is essentially still advisory. If we're still
My
doing
understanding is
SEL.
it's still advisory, it's gonna move to the beginning of the day.
Correct,
And I
they're
don't wanna use the-
rebranding it in a sense to
Right.
try to
Launch the day for the kids.
launch the day, so and Character Strong will be used maybe 2 times a week. The other days of the week, we have an advisory team of teachers that looked at 3 or 4 different curriculums to support advisory, and they chose Character Strong, and that team continues to meet throughout the year to plan what occurs during advisory time. We know through feedback, and I think some of our climate survey results, if I remember some of the open-ended responses, Dr. Robinson, correct me if I'm wrong, but we knew we needed to work on advisory and what we were doing, what students were doing. When, I think, I don't know if Mrs. Bonnick or Mrs. Eichhorst used the term soft skills, but we are creating a profile of a middle school scholar, and those strengths and attributes are what we will be working on in what is rebranded as our time, which was previously an advisory. But I know some people call them success skills, soft skills, but really we'll be working on, when we finish the profile of a middle school scholar, those things in advisory.
I'm in full support of the profile of a middle school scholar. I love all of the things that we're being told are going to happen. I'm in a conflict with a program like Character Strong, where you're focusing on emotions over building character. Because, I mean, let's be honest, social emotional learning is a program where you're constantly examining yourself.
So we're in a committee report right now. These are all good questions. I would clarify, I think, Mrs. McFarland, the previous advisory program was using Second Step
Yes.
as the character ed curriculum within advisory. What the committee heard and what is in a resolution tonight is for Character Strong to be approved to be the character ed curriculum to support the overall advisory program, that would be replacing Second Step.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, I understand all that.
so if we have clarified what happened at the committee report, then some of the other questions maybe would be discussed when we're actually entertaining that resolution
Okay.
as
I can wait.
necessary.
Sure.
Anything else on curriculum?
I don't think so.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none, we will move to finance.
The budget hearing probably covered 90%
Yeah.
of that agenda. I think there might have been two other smaller items, one of which was reviewing the appraisal on the most, the current appraisal from 297 Prospect. I think there might have been one other thing, I can't recall.
We talked a little,
Oh,
yeah.
the transportation rate increase.
Yep, transportation rate, 297 Prospect. We talked about the contract for school resource officer. And then the chunk of the meeting was the general fund budget. And the sun was beaming in the room, and it was about 400 degrees. Any questions for anybody that was at finance? That was a committee of the whole, but we did have Chris, myself, Catherine, and Mike were able to attend that. So, any other questions? All right, moving on to facilities. We had a very quick facilities meeting. That was myself, Chris, and Mike. Mike, did you want to do that one?
I can do it.
Okay.
If Chris doesn't. There are two resolutions on the agenda tonight that came out of the Facilities Committee meeting. The first one is regarding Indian Hills site work. There's already equipment in place as they were putting the addition on, and they are proposing that, or through the resolution, to move forward with replacing the play pad out there. Since the equipment's already there, rather than to take down and reset up in a year, why not do it now? You have to grow grass, you can ruin, or the site work can be modified several times before it's done. So that resolution is to put in the new site pad now, moving it forward or back, moving it forward because it was part of the bond, but we're going to do that now, and it seems to be more fiscally responsible to do it at this point in time. The other thing that we talked about was that the parking lot at the high school, Mr. Storm is investigating the high school parking lot. Knowing that that parking lot is 6 years old now, it's starting to show some wear, some cracks. I believe they call it alligating. And so he's researching it now to see what it would cost to have that parking lot serviced. And the last item, like Ms. Bonnick said, it was a very quick meeting, is a resolution to purchase by Mr. Storm a two-person towable lift. There's a need for that into the district, and he's requesting that. And it's kind of ironic, in the district that I work at, we just bought one ourselves. So they're becoming popular, I guess. So that's it for the facilities, unless anybody else has anything else to add.
Well, we did talk about the Hamilton Parsons water. So that's a continual battle. I think for me, the aha moment there was, it's not so much the water, it's the amount that we're able to flow through to make our filtration system work. And that continues to be a problem, and Mr. Storm is looking at various ways to correct that before school starts, but whenever that does happen, there is a potential for bottled water at the start of school, so we just need to be aware of that.
So those that live in that part of the district understand wells. People who don't might not. So Hamilton Parsons is on a well, and because of that, we have regular water testing. And what we're deeming, Mr. Storm spent a lot of time in his 3 years here around the water system at Hamilton Parsons. And this most recent investigation is revealing that the current well is not producing the adequate water flow for the filtration system to be maximized. So we're working with a contractor to help us with some possible solutions and continuing to try and find something that is financially viable and reasonable, but also that will be a long-term solution. The well, as we understand it at Hamilton Parsons, actually existed before the school
I was
was
just about
built.
to ask how old it was.
Yeah, we don't know, I don't think, but it was before the school, and so maybe didn't even necessarily at that time have the capacity required. So more to come on that.
Moving on to the superintendent's report.
Just a couple quick things from Rob and Jennifer, and I have a couple things, and we'll move on to the action tonight.
Good evening. Let's have a few things from the elementary perspective. Summer skills started today at Hevel. Can't remember what the final number was that we landed on in terms of number of participants, but it's well over 100, 150. Most importantly today, all students found their way where they needed to go, and in an even more difficult capacity, found their way onto the bus and home. No phone calls or anything like that. Tells us that kids got to where they needed to be. We're happy about our programming this year and know it's going to make an impact for the kids who are participating. So all Romeo teachers are supporting the program, entering first grade through entering fifth, in addition to a few there's a fly trying to land on me. A few EL programs, and then also we've been able to use some of the grant money from Macomb ISD to run some high dosage tutoring sections as well, which is kind of an anomaly. We haven't done anything like that before, and so we're excited to see that growth and development as well. With summer skills being kind of the last big piece of this school year, we're now looking ahead to 24-25, starting to make preparation for professional development. We've had time to sit down with teachers, sit down with building administrators, and establish kind of what our goals are for next year. And the behind the scenes stuff is happening right now. In that same vein, our report card initiative is continuing on. Worked with teachers and administrators throughout the year to basically take all of our standards, the most critical standards, right, that need to be reported on, bake them into I can statements, and then create some documents that will allow Kim Ozella, who works her magic on the report cards, to begin reformatting. Won't look much different, but the way that things are worded will. On the cards, we're kind of locked into the format, but she will begin that work after the 4th of July, and we'll be able to have some nice new clean report cards at the elementary level in the fall. Questions? It's pretty boring, I know, sorry. It's almost July.
Mrs. Eichhorst, there were 2 teachers at the middle school and the high school that piloted at each grade level. So I don't know if the notes said that or not, but there were 2 at each grade level. So only a couple could make it to the subcommittee meeting the other night. Much like elementary summer school for the high school began today, and there are about 40 students in credit recovery, and we have 8 students in our newcomers English language group that started today. So we are excited to be able to utilize some of those grant funds that were still left to be able to offer that. And we added a lower elementary English language support class for summer just about 2 weeks ago. So we now have 2, a lower L and an upper L at the elementary, and then we have a newcomers that we swooped in a couple of current 8th graders that are going to be 9th graders into the newcomers. So we're excited about offering them some support before they enter the beginning of the school year again. We had a great 3.5 hours with our Ford NGL community coach Scott Palmer and the executive director Cheryl Carrier today with Centerline, and it was Dr. Robinson, myself, Eva Dawson, and Rich Bojo, our academy coach at the high school. And Centerline had their superintendent, assistant soup, and academy coach. So we are in the same county and use the same convening organization. So we spent some time today talking about some of our successes and challenges, and trying to identify ways that we can continue to improve our partnership, and ensuring that our goals as the academies at Romeo High School are met with the support of the Macomb Planning and Economic Development Department. We're finishing things up this year. Mrs. Lasky presented the budget, and we know ours ends on June 30th. Our consolidated app for federal funds, we have until September 30th, but some things are going over the summer, but we're trying to plan for next year's consolidated application, which are Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV. It is not open yet. Typically, it's due by June 30th, but it's not available to start. So we've been working with both Washington and Amanda Moore as our Title I buildings, prioritizing their needs and wants. And then through Title II, our professional development, Rob talked a little bit about planning, speaking with principals and teachers. Some of our Title II funds can support the professional learning of our teachers and administrators. And then I think Mrs. Lasky and I are both thrilled that our ESSER will be ending. I'm going to miss the funds, but not the reporting. So every year after, about, what do you say, Vicki? It's probably about 7 months after the year ends, they come back and say, hey, you got to report out. And these are all the things we want you to report on. So typically you know that ahead of time. That has not happened with these ESSER funds from the Fed. So I'm hopeful that what they asked for last school year, they're going to ask for this school year. So we're making sure we consolidate all that data and gather all that information, so we're not backtracking like I had to this past spring. I'm sure they'll throw some new things at us, but if I can have all that information ready, then it will give me more time to find the new things they want. Any questions?
Just a comment, we will celebrate with you on the expiration of that. And I also did add in the notes, it didn't say the opposite of what you said, about the
Okay.
but I just
Thank you.
clarified it a little better, so.
Thank you.
All right, just a couple things. Our last group of priorities that we've been on this journey began with our March workshop, and then over the course of our last 3 regular meetings, we're appreciative for the board's support of Group 1, 2, and 3, and tonight is Group 4, so a little shorter, but we have additional funding for the K-12 cycle of interdependence. So 3 years ago in the priorities process, we seeded a line item in the budget to be able to support funding for curriculum review and adoption. And then on one occasion, we added an additional $100,000 to it. And so now we're asking again, with knowing what our projected budget is in that, we believe when we think of next year, we can add another $100,000 to that line item. Ultimately, what we'd like to do is have this be a regular part of the annual budget and not have the need to draw down on fund balance when we bring curriculum revisions. Depending on the subject levels, the subject and the grade levels, you know, some of these adoptions can be pretty costly. There also could be years where the collection of curriculums we've reviewed and the number of new materials we might need might be less. So that's the first of Group 4. The second is we moved a lot of part-time positions in the pandemic to full-time with ESSER funding, which was great. And most of those paraprofessionals wish to, continue at full-time. So we've planned and allocated for those to now be transferred to the general fund. And I think the important note is, and the board knows this, that we've included that financial commitment in the RASPA contract tentative agreement for tonight. So that expense is within the contract approval when we talk about Group 4 on the table tonight. And then just quickly with hiring update, you know, in terms of professional staff, we still have 4 teaching positions. We did have a recent resignation from the middle school with someone who chose to get a job back in their home district. So this can evolve over the summer. We always like to think we're there and we know what we need, and then something happens on the way to the market and we have another position. But we've made some great progress and hired some super dynamic people that we're excited about. But currently, there's 4 teaching positions that we're still working to fill. You know, the board knows, because I told you in our update, I just want to take this opportunity. Steve Emile, longtime assistant principal here at Powell, and also more recently in our merged Romeo Middle School, has made the decision to retire and pursue another opportunity in addition to, of course, his retirement. And so I just want to publicly thank Steve for his years of service. This wasn't easy for Steve, and he really, you know, didn't feel great about the timing that this all came together, but it did come together after the school year was done. And so there's some communication amongst the middle school, and once we get those things taken care of, and I had the opportunity for the board to know that tonight in the personnel update, then we'll move forward with the posting and a thorough process for that. So a public shout out to Mr. Emile for his years of service. I don't think he'll be far from Romeo. I'm guessing we'll see him on an occasional Friday night and things like that. But really appreciate, it's been great for me personally to get to know Steve, and he is certainly he's certainly intrinsic to Romeo and who Romeo is. So thank you, Mr. Emile. In terms of support staff, we've got several building secretary positions vacant with some retirements, and that's kind of unique. But we pulled a group of administrators and Rob together and some other representatives, and they actually did an initial round of interviews with several candidates that actually had some really viable candidates, and we'll begin now offering some of those positions at the available. And then we actually have a couple of other candidates that interviewed that if for some reason it doesn't work out with one of our 4 lead candidates, we may go down to them. And then a couple of paraprofessional vacancies. So for those who might watch the recording of the meeting who are interested in working for the district, we have a variety of opportunities, and if you go to the district webpage on the hiring tab, employment opportunities tab, you can find our vacancies, or you can certainly contact employee services or the superintendent's office, and we can get you to that information. That's all that I have.
All right. I did not receive any public comment on anything that we're voting on, so we will move to regular meeting action items. The first one is the Employee Services Resolution 44, which is our personnel update. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Moved by Ms. Rice. Can I have support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Connor. Are there any questions or concerns?
I have a question. I asked this before, but I just want to clarify. Do we do exit surveys as a requirement, or does the person have to request it?
I think it's offered.
Okay. So it is offered to everybody, standard protocol? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Employee Services Resolution 45, which is our RASPA tentative agreement, 2024 to 2027. Can I have a motion?
Motion. Support.
Moved by Icor, supported, seemed like
Everyone.
a lot of people.
Demas.
So
We'll
we'll
do
go
Dr.
by
Demas.
Dr.
Yeah.
Demas.
All right.
Okay, heard his voice. Any questions or concerns? This is a 3-year collective bargained agreement. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to RASPA. Thank you to our HR department for diligent work. Moving on to Employee Services Resolution 46, which is our Special Services Director reclassification. Moved by Mr. Demus,
Support. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, boy.
supported by
Rachel.
Guys are excited.
Eichhorst.
Okay.
Any
Got it.
questions or concerns? This is one that we talked about in leadership priorities. Moving our special services position to 12-month. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Moving on to Resolution 47, which is Leadership Priorities 24-25, Group 4. Can I have a motion? Moved by Dr. Demas,
Support.
support by Antoine. Group 4 priorities equals
Oh, okay, I
about
got it.
100,000.
Yep.
This is funding for the K-12 cycle and maintain full-time paraprofessional positions.
You didn't? You support it?
Yep. Any questions or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is Academic Services Resolution 48A, which is the 6 through 8 Amplify. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Support?
Motion.
Moved and supported. Are there any questions or
You
concerns?
supported?
I supported.
You did. Okay, hang on. We had 2 teachers for each age group pilot this.
Correct.
ELA, what did they have to say?
At the curriculum meeting,
Yeah.
they,
We heard from 2 of them at the curriculum meeting, and they said that it was very engaging for students. They talked about how they would not be using every novel that came with the curriculum necessarily, and that there would be some flexibility. I know my concern of it, not necessarily with the whole program, but 2 major things, because it is this basically the same company of CKLA, some of those same concerns carry over. I just don't want to rush into it. Not that you throw out the baby with the bathwater, because I think there's a lot of good things to it. But I just don't want to get ourselves in the same boat where we're committed to a long-term contract, asking questions after the fact and then being told, well, you approved it. So, I'd rather ask the questions up front. My other question is, it is a 6-year contract. Who determines that? Is there a way to shorten it? Because 6 years is a long time, to approve that at the expense. So I don't know if that's something, we can do a 2-year contract, a 3-year, just.
Yeah, I mean, typically these curriculum providers, the longer you sign for, the better the pricing is, and I'm guessing that's why 6 years was probably the longest term. Mrs. McFarland?
No, they could go longer. It
Okay.
was, we spent a lot of time, particularly our middle school teachers. They chose not to go with what the high school wanted, and they pushed back on any of the initial presentations that we had and spent some time doing research and found something that they felt was more middle school appropriate. And the time invested that they spent, we chose to go with a 6-year contract, because when you think about a cycle, you typically go 6 years before, if you do a 2-year, they haven't gotten really good at it yet, right? And if you do a 3-year or 4, it's usually 6 years, they really have really gotten good with the curriculum. So that's why we chose 6.
It could be less.
It could be.
I tend to agree with you, Rachel. I think that 6 years is too long. I think so 2 years, they get into it, they like it, everything's going well, renew it. 2 years later, renew it. I tend to think that anything for 6 years has the potential, possibly, as things do, to decompensate over time. I don't want to sign a contract for 6 years if it has the potential to diminish over time. I think 2 years, and don't get me wrong, I like Amplify. I like it for the elementary school kids. I had a pretty good experience with it last year. There's some things, but there's always some things. I think 6 years is too long. And I thought I heard you say there was a possibility for flexibility. Is that correct?
We didn't spend a lot of time on that in the meeting, but there was.
So Amplify offers a 100-day lesson plan. They also offer a 82-day lesson plan. So there are 6 units at each grade level. In the 100-day plan, there's flexibility for our teachers to be able to do some of their independent novel units that they've built over the past 10 to 12 years, because we haven't had a guaranteed viable curriculum. They, again, have been doing it on their own. So the 100-day lesson plan offers that flexibility that they can continue those independent reading units that they want. It also, Amplify offers flexibility within the units. So 8th grade piloted a Holocaust unit. That is not part of the 100-day plan, but we can put that in the 100-day plan and pull out another unit that Amplify has in the 100-day plan. So the flexibility of pulling a unit and putting a different one in is within the Amplify, and that's what attracted the middle school teachers to that, instead of being held to a 182-day lesson plan and having to teach everything. They appreciated the flexibility that it offered.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. I'm held up on the 6 years, though.
I'll just offer a flip side to that. When you're in the classroom and you're a teacher and you think something's a flash in the pan, you're less likely to fully embrace. And so there is some, there's, the teachers did a lot of work to pilot. They're also doing their other classroom stuff during it. So when professionals come to us and say, this is what we want, this is their recommendation,
This is what they want right now.
and it has flexibility. It's fine to not be on the same page.
I'm just-
But I think sometimes we forget that our professionals in the classroom are just that, and a curriculum is something that gives them support and guidance and meets benchmarks and helps them do their job, much like we all do our job, but we can tweak and we can pull and we work with our grade level partners and we go to our principals when we have concerns, and we meet as grade level teams across district often, so there is that flexibility. If 6 years is the only part that's hung up, my concern would just be, I'd want to hear from the teachers as to, is that concerning for them? Does it feel so scary to them to have a 6-year? Because you can always supplement, you can always do more, and you can always remove.
I wouldn't say that the teachers would diminish. I would say that the program content could potentially diminish, and that is my fear, because this is a third-party curriculum. This isn't our professionals that are very capable in our classrooms providing a lesson plan. This is a curriculum providing that lesson plan with flexibility from the teachers so they're able to do their thing. I get that. But this is a prepackaged lesson plan, curriculum mapping from a third-party company.
Which is pretty much all of them.
I understand that too.
Okay, I just feel
But not
like
all of
that's
them, but we
normal.
don't do 6-year contracts for all of them either. And this is a hefty cost.
I would offer to, Anita, to your comment, I totally understand as a teacher myself, like, just wait 5 years and you'll be given something else. It's always changing and it is frustrating. But I could also say the flip side, if I don't like a curriculum, gosh, now I'm stuck with it for 6 years. 6 years is a long time. 6 years is a kindergartner coming, and I know this is for middle school, but that's a kindergartner who's now in middle school.
That's
They're
a whole
6 years
career.
later. So what is the danger in asking for a 2-year contract and just to renew it?
I will offer the board, when we adopted our math curriculum, it was for 6 years.
And we had a
That's
lot-
up next
we had a lot
year.
of complaints about it.
So
And
we
now
have
we don't like
to
it.
go back.
I mean,
Well,
we
I don't
loved-
know who we don't like it means, but
Well-
we'll have committees, looking at those. We had a 6-year contract for our elementary science tech book
But we're
when I
talking about
first
this
got
program.
here.
We're not
I'm
talking
just
about
saying
math
that
or
we've done
science.
6-year contracts in the past.
That's just a point of clarification. So let's do this. Is it a matter of everybody wants to approve it, they just don't want to approve 6 years? Is it a matter of, can we create an amendment that at least lets professional training and stuff happen this summer? with not knowing what a 2-year would be, we would just say it simply wouldn't go over this? I mean, what is the flavor of the board? That's the question.
I'm prepared to make a motion for a 2-year contract with definite renewal options. Now, I know the price could potentially go up, so we have to be willing to, deal with that, which I'm okay with. Because that's safe for me. That feels safer than, just tossing this entire program out. I like this program.
So I think I want to take a little bit of what I've heard three people say, and I'm noting this on behalf of our teachers and middle school administration, and quite honestly, secondary ELA as a whole, because they've been on a journey, and we didn't force all the grade levels into the same box. There was autonomy in the first half of the year to explore and decide, and I'm grateful that they settled on some things they're confident in. The board's approval tonight can ask all the questions they want, but I want to make sure that the board's sending a message that they are willing to invest in the fact that it's the first time we're actually going to have a formal middle school ELA curriculum, and they want it.
Yes.
They have screamed for it for years, because this notion of organic and creating their own, we immediately lose fidelity across classrooms, and so this is something they really desire, and I just want the board to be clear that this does send a message of investment in curriculum for our teachers. That doesn't mean that I'm saying it has to be 6 years.
I
think
understand.
we
No
have
one
to
is
be
saying we
clear.
don't want to invest. Here is my issue, and I brought this up twice now in our subcommittee meeting. I was told this really isn't your place to ask these kind of questions. I believe the community expects us to know what we are approving, whether you're a parent or a teacher, whatever stakeholder you are. And I've always told, ask your questions, but then when we ask questions, we're kind of like, no, you can ask the questions, but please just sit down and shut up, for lack of a better word. So I would question, what is the fidelity of the subcommittee to exist in the first place? If we are going to just have teachers approve curriculum, great, then don't have a subcommittee, because it's a waste of our time. So if you want our input, you want us to approve it, then you need to let us know what's in it, because we owe that to the stakeholders of the community. It doesn't mean we're not investing in teachers, trust me. And in reference to, we've done 6-year adoptions before. I was here with 3 elementary students when Engage New York came on the scene. And I saw some good in it. I saw the nightmares in it from a teacher perspective, because I volunteered in my children's classrooms weekly. I also saw the good in it, seeing it from my kindergartner who went all the way through versus my upper L kids who struggled a little bit with it. And I just remember this district defending it to death. And now I'm finding out that we're done with that. So there is a frustration, and I think it can be said from a parent perspective and a teacher perspective. The pendulum is constantly swinging, and educators never know what's next. So to question the length of a contract, I don't think is sending the message that we're not investing in teachers. I don't want that to be the message that's said.
I guess I would just ask.
I find it
that
rather
the board,
insulting, to be honest with you.
the board maybe make a comment that at the end of the first year, we would review the potential of an extension.
Oh, I think we
You
should
know
be
what
in
I'm saying?
constant
Like,
reviewing.
it isn't 2-year incremental, like.
No.
It's an ongoing process to gain more comfort level, work with the curriculum subcommittee, so that an extension, doesn't wait until 2 years, and it's more of an ongoing opportunity.
So everything that we adopt and vote on should be reviewed at least yearly. I mean, not in a formal sense, but, your teachers should be able to come to you and say, hey, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and then you can put out a poll or whatever you guys do to review these programs. But, yeah, I think that's essential, and I think that's part of the, don't we have a professional development person that's included in this contract? Am I wrong?
Support?
So,
Yes.
a support person
Training.
for
a trainer.
those. Aren't they also, wouldn't they also serve as sort of like a soundboard for teachers to say, hey, I'm confused about this, or I like this, or
It would
whatever?
be similar, my understanding, to what elementary has right now.
Yeah, like a sports person, yeah. No, I don't think a 2-year with a renewal, I don't even know if teachers would even notice that we were renewing the contract. I mean, are we telling them, yeah, we're gonna renew, we're gonna renew?
Well, we would include them in the,
Yeah.
to give you the feedback about, to make a decision on renewal.
Yeah, they're gonna love it, and we're gonna renew it, or they're gonna hate it, and we're not.
So where are we at with the resolution, Mrs. Bonnet?
I don't know, I asked for the group. I think a couple things that I just want to say. This is healthy discussion. I get disenfranchised when we are at subcommittee meetings and I feel questions are being asked, and to say like it's a waste of your time. I mean, I've spent more than 10 hours in the last 2 weeks at meetings, and if it's a waste of time, then I'd like to
It's not a
stop
waste of my
coming.
time, but whenever I've asked questions, I'm shouted down, and I've called separately at my home or emailed and told I need to talk to somebody before I come to the meeting, because you don't want this to happen.
No, I think this is good to
Well,
happen,
and
and
it's
if
it's
you're
fine.
directing
It's
that at me,
good.
I don't know
No,
that
just
I've
in
ever
general.
said that to you.
So,
But what I guess I would say
inconsistent messaging, I guess.
is, for the viewers at home, we are a Board of Education, much like everybody else in the nation. When you run for school board, you're running to make sure there's due process, fiscal responsibility. You're overseeing process. Otherwise, if we all had to be experts at everything, I mean, we're approving tow trucks. None of us are tow truck experts. We're approving sewer systems and all sorts of things. So I just want the people at home to know, we do spend time talking about this. We do look into it, but we do trust the professionals that give us that information. So what is a little alarming to me is if 2 years and 6 years was an issue, I mean, first of all, that could have been addressed already.
It was emailed out 2 days ago.
Okay, well, so 2 days, board packet's already out, that's fine. Let's
Right.
not use this as a microcosm. We're busy people, it's summertime, totally get that. But in general, maybe our subcommittee structure will be more healthy for everybody, is if those questions from the subcommittee meetings are being sent and the responses are going back to everybody, so that we're not hearing about it for the first time at the board table. I would never say, don't have a discussion at the board table. What I think, if you're quoting me, it's not something brand new, because I'm not opposed to 2 years. But I'm hearing about it for the first time, and now we're sitting here like, okay, is the motion a certain amount of money? Is it not? Could we have already found out what the money is? That's all I'm saying.
6 years is the first time I'm hearing about it.
Right.
And so I would say, with things of this magnitude, we need to have committee of the whole meetings, so that way I can attend, because I'm not on the curriculum subcommittee meeting, so that's another discussion.
That
We can
is,
do that.
because we can't
No, but
even
this
get
is
our
serious.
3.
No, I understand that would be
We also
cumbersome.
have to understand that, these pilots have been going on. That it isn't the first time. They've been reporting that the pilots have been going on. So if we want to be more involved in that, then that's a whole different conversation. I wouldn't say every subcommittee has to start
I
being.
didn't say every, I said
Yeah.
things of this magnitude that
But
cost.
see, you're thinking this is magnitude. We spend 5 times this when we do a bond issue thing,
We're
right?
not-
I mean,
But that's not what we're doing. We're approving curriculum for
but we,
6
staff
through 12.
members cost more. Do you know what I mean?
But-
Like,
Yeah,
so
but
that's
we're
what I'm
approving
saying.
curriculum for all of our kids.
And we're approving staff members for all of our kids.
But I'm talking about curriculum. I didn't know about the 6-year license. That's my only qualm about it. I like the flexibility, I like the program. So
Right,
let's make
so
a
getting-
motion that says, can we negotiate down to a couple of years and with the options of, renewing?
Sure.
I think
would
that's
turn
what we're
to
saying.
administration first and just, is that something, how does that? You really have to stop talking from the audience. It is so inappropriate. Let us do our jobs, and when you get elected, you can do it too, and you won't appreciate it when people are interrupting you from the audience. Okay? Do we have that understanding? Okay, well, try.
So I would say, is it a possibility, guys, is it a possibility to negotiate a 2-year contract? Is it a possibility?
We just want to hear, like,
Yes or no?
do they have
Can
it?
we
Do
do
they
it?
not?
Can
Do
we
we
not
know
do
it?
it?
should we table it? Do you need time?
Right.
I'd have to reach out to the rep and see what a 2-year contract would be. I would ask,
Okay.
are you going to do this for the Into Literature as well? That's a 6-year contract?
Yeah.
And I did not know that was a 6-year contract. That wasn't told to us.
Which is why we separated the two, because they shouldn't be together. But yes.
They
I
are
would've-
in our board packet as 6-year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I don't believe that was focused on at the committee meeting, subcommittee meeting.
I just need direction if you want me to contact both companies to get a 2-year contract, or just the Amplify.
both. I would say both, but I'm just one person.
I agree with both.
I agree.
That's 3.
To see if they can be.
Gus, are you okay with a
2-year
6-year, or
or
would you
2-year?
only want to vote on a 2-year for both?
I can go with either one. The 2-year sounds pretty good, I think, for
Even if it costs more money, you're okay with that?
us, yeah.
Okay. Wayne and Mike?
I'm the same as Gus. I could go with either, but if we can do a 2, it's fine.
2.
Okay. So the question becomes, and I'm asking it because I don't know, is it helpful for us to just not vote tonight and tell you that's what we want and figure out a timeline? Or is it helpful for us to approve this with intention of a 2-year, and if it can't be, then we would come back? Dr. Robinson, do you want to answer that question? I mean, is it okay to do it that way, do you think?
I guess we're not going to meet again until July 22nd.
Right,
So
that's-
Mrs. McFarland reaches out to these providers, and that's an option,
If
then,
you have teachers that
and-
want to dive in before
yeah.
that
and
July
we-
meeting,
and
they
Get 'em
we-
going.
We have the board's approval, and we know we can do that. We, of course, would communicate with the board, but we could move forward.
Right, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's
so-
more helpful if we
yes, I
approve
just-
both resolutions.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
With the intent of 2 years and not, okay.
Correct.
So,
I just don't know the monetary cost of 2 years versus
Right.
the 6.
and if some of the other things
The other
change.
things wouldn't change.
Okay,
It's just the cost of the licenses.
okay. So, we are still on, if I remember correctly, and you guys can correct me, we are on 48A.
48A.
Which is 6 through 8 Amplify. And we would be making an amendment, and I would need someone to make that amendment, to approve it as written with the exception of a 2-year contract instead of a 6-year. With the understanding that if a 2-year is not offered, administration would come back to us.
Yes.
would the same language be for 49B? as
Well, right now, let's just work on
Yes,
48A.
I will make that
Since that's the
amendment.
motion that's on the table.
Motion, yes.
Okay.
Support.
So we have a motion to approve Resolution 48A, 6 through 8, as written with the exception of a 2-year contract. So I have a motion
Support.
and a support. Now, are there any questions or concerns on that?
No.
All right, can I have roll call?
Mr. Antoine?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnet?
Yes.
Mr. Connor? Dr. Demas? Mrs. Ikorst?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Young?
Yes.
All right.
I don't think you asked me, but I'm a yes.
did.
Oh, well, I don't think I answered.
Oh, I thought you grumbled. You're right next to me.
Okay,
All right, I
sorry.
have an ear infection. I
All
can't hear
right,
anything.
moving on to Resolution 48B, which is 9 through 12, literature. It is I want to say the right word. It's not amplify, it was just.
Into literature.
Okay, there it is.
Houghton Mifflin.
Okay, so I need a motion. Can I just alter it right out of the gate, even though it was originally, I can just make the motion that way?
Yes.
I am making a motion to approve 48B, 9th through 12th grade literature as written with the exception of a 2-year contract. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Rice. Any questions or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Wait,
I said aye.
okay.
Okay.
Motion approved. Moving on to Academic Services 49, which is the annual curriculum adoptions, healthy relationships, ULS, and Character Strong.
Motion.
Moved by Antoine. I will support. Do you have questions?
I have a question about the people that get to choose the curriculum, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's a committee of teachers, and they themselves do not have an advisory hour, and they get a stipend for choosing, for being on that committee. How does that work, Ms. McFarland? Or Dr. Robinson?
So there is an advisory lead, and then there are grade level advisory teachers. There were other people that were also involved in the decision-making for that curriculum.
Is it always the same people? Like, does it rotate from year to year, or every couple years, like where other teachers?
I think every
can-
2 years, there's an opportunity if someone, this year, I think they had 2 new people
Okay.
that were not last year.
Okay.
I think the other thing is, the difference with the transformation planning is this involves other voices than even.
Right, I just want to make
that
sure there's
original
multiple
committee.
voices, not just the same people.
I would like to make an amendment, if I could, since we already did our motion. I won't vote for Character Strong. The other two are okay. But if I have to vote no on the whole thing, I will. I'd rather not, because I do think the individual learning system or plan is okay. The healthy relationships is okay. But the Character Strong that deals with SEL and Castle, I won't vote for that. So how do we go about doing that? Is that the same thing that we would have done for the first amendment, or?
We can if the whole group wants to do that, but if it's just going to be approved, I mean, unless you
Then on the
don't-
record, I just will
yeah,
vote no.
you
I'll
can
just have to vote no on all three.
I'm not telling you what you
No, no,
can
no,
do
no,
or
I know
can't
that,
do.
I
I'm
know
just
that,
saying that
I know
would be
that.
the option.
But, that would be an option.
We're just going to start getting in the habit of breaking apart
I think so.
everything, and I don't,
But maybe we should
Yeah.
I think
get in
so,
the habit of that.
because this has happened twice tonight, and
oh,
It's like Congress ramming everything into one.
so
I
what do
mean,
we?
We
so
want to
what do
do
we
good
think?
for the district, but I don't want to just sit here and ram stuff through and be a puppet. That's
Yep.
my concern.
Same.
So I'd like to break them apart if we could, or just pull out Character Strong.
all you have to do is just make the motion.
I did.
Okay, well, say it again, so then someone can
I
approve
would like
it,
to
second
make
it.
a motion to break apart Resolution number 49 and pull out Character Strong. Yeah.
So I will
Support.
help you
So
with that.
we can
It would
support?
be, let me just say it so we get it on the record. We'll do the same thing with A and B.
Okay.
So it'd be Academic Services 49A, which would be the adoption. Do you want healthy relationships and ULS together, or do you want all three of them separate? It would be an A, B, and C. I heard from this side of the table that they want everything separate.
We could do everything
Okay.
separate. That's
So we
fine.
will have a 49A, which would be healthy relationships. We will have a 49B, which would be ULS.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have a 49C, which would be Character Strong. So that would be the motion or the amendment that you are asking for,
Yep,
if you agree with that.
I agree with that.
And then do we have a second?
Support?
Support. Okay, so now let's take 49A, which is the annual curriculum adoption for healthy relationships.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 49B, which would be ULS,
Motion?
Second.
moved in second. We have Young and Ikorst. You just tell me if I'm going too fast.
No, it's a mess
Well,
on this paper.
that's
but-
why we have Antoinette here too. She'll double check our work.
Bless your heart.
All right. Any questions or concerns on ULS?
No.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 49C, which is Character Strong. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion moved in second. Any questions or concerns on ULS?
Aye.
Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 49C, which is Character Strong. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Moved and supported. Any questions or concerns?
Only the ones voiced.
Okay. Any others?
I just wish we were given, I guess, more information. I know that, we keep hearing, well, leave it to the experts, and I'll go back to again, if you want to have a curriculum subcommittee, then we need all the information, not just a quick presentation. And maybe I'm the only one that's asking for that. I know I'm the only one that actually looked at the curriculum that we're reviewing tonight, for the most part.
That's not necessarily true.
Well, who else read through the textbooks that we are approving or not approving?
I looked at the maps.
Yeah.
You asked for them and looked through them page by page?
I
'Cause
did
I
not
asked
look.
who else would like them, and nobody,
I mean, you sent them to me.
Right.
well, I
So,
sent.
I just don't
a
think
link.
it's fair to say that, and that wouldn't be the integrity that we would be at the board. Just because I believe that if I look through it and I've read and I am in
Absolutely, no, you don't have to
places where
agree
other
with me.
people are doing the same curriculum and I have teacher friends that do that, it doesn't mean I read every page because I haven't. So but to say that nobody else ever spends any time is not a fair statement to say.
I think we need to do our due diligence and diving a little deeper if we are going to have these subcommittees. Otherwise, we should reevaluate the subcommittee structure. But if we're going to have them, then I think we should.
No, I think we
Do
should
them.
just go to all meetings like this, have presentations here.
I agree.
Can do that too.
I used to like it that way.
A character-strong resolution right now,
Yes.
and maybe board discussion for the good of the district on that.
So, any other questions? All right, do you want to do roll call?
Mr. Antoine?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnet?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
No.
Dr. Demas? Yes. Mrs. Eichhorst?
No.
I'm a hard no. Mr. Young?
Hard no.
All right. Academic Services Resolution 50, which is the Student Handbook and Code of Conduct.
Support.
Moved, support.
Questions or concerns? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to Business Services Resolution 51, which is the final budget. Can I have a
So moved.
motion?
Oh,
Moved by Connor, supported by Dr. Demas.
okay.
Any questions or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Did I do that right? I feel like I skipped a.
Nope, you're
Okay.
good. Original now.
Okay. All right, Business Services Resolution 52, which is the fiscal year 2025 original budgets. Can I have a motion?
Second.
Dr. Demas, supported by Eichhorst. Any questions or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next one is Facilities Resolution 53, which is the CTE equipment purchase, student workstations, the Hideaway LCD dual user tables.
Motion.
Moved by Mr.
I
Antoine,
support that.
support by Demas.
Okay.
Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Facilities Resolution 54, which is the Operations Department equipment purchase, which is the towable aerial man lift, which was discussed at the Facilities Committee. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Support? Questions?
Who supported?
I did.
Do we have to do an annual inspection on this or keep on inspections if we get one of these lifts?
Mr. Storm, is that a yes? Yes, annual
Okay.
inspections.
We do that currently on our bucket truck, that's 23 years old.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Facilities Resolution 55, which is Indian Hills site work, change order approval. This is for the play pad, discussed at facilities.
Motion.
Support.
Moved and supported. That was Antoine Connor. Any questions or concerns?
No.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the public comment. I have the GSAPS update. Mr. Folino? Yeah.
Look like a little kid scribbling over here.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Franco Folino, 253 Chandler Street, here on behalf of GSOPS. First, we would like to thank you for the continued support of the GSOPS effort. Just to expand a little bit from the GSOPS update from earlier in the meeting, since the last time we spoke, GSOPS has put tremendous effort into our fundraising strategy. So more specifically, we have a very clear and attainable path to reach our fundraising goal in the next few months. As a quick fundraising update as well, we've raised just over $340,000 as of today. We've been eager to start discussion on expectations for the milestone updates that we discussed at the last meeting. And Dr. Robinson, I just read your email from earlier today, so Don and I will be in touch, and we'll get on your schedule. So with that, thank you very much, and have a nice evening. Thanks.
Thank you. Board discussion?
We ready? Okay, is it on? Okay. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I appreciate hearing the discourse going back and forth, just because as a parent, we often don't know what's going on. There's a lot going on out in the world that is really, really bad, and we don't know what's going on in here unless we look. And I don't want to get emotional, but some of the things I find, and I've witnessed as an employee and as a parent, my Schoology parent account, you don't have a whole lot of visibility in what the students are actually doing. You'll see like an assignment, but you can't click on it and see it because it's all protected. So upon delving into my child's Schoology account in 10th grade, I'm looking at her 10th grade honors English curriculum, and I'm seeing these flag words: xenophobia, white privilege. They're reading The Great Gatsby. I can see some of the comments from some of the students and some of the journaling that they have to answer questions to or about, and they're going on and on and on about all these politically divisive things. I understand The Great Gatsby. I know what it's about, but it was a different time. Why are they talking about white privilege? Why are they talking about xenophobia? Why did I find a Moana article about cultural appropriation in my daughter's backpack saying, is it okay for a white child to wear a Moana costume? What does that have to do with 10th grade honors English? What does it have to do? Nothing. And yeah, it makes me angry because it's this political divisive rhetoric that just keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed. I was in DC 2 months ago in the window of the NEA building. Granted, it's a union. They tend to be political. It's Stop Asian Hate, BLM, LGBTQ justice. What does any of this have to do, in essence, with good education for our children? Ninth graders were sitting over here, and I'm hearing some things as I'm walking around: cross-dressing, homophobia. So obviously my interest was piqued. They were reading an article about hate crimes and what drives people to do hate crimes. This was for English again. And I keep hearing the words cross-dressing and homophobia in the court case they were reading about. And then the students proceeded to talk about
well, I'm not homophobic. And the next student said, well, I'm not homophobic either. And the other student said, well, I don't feel comfortable talking about any of this. I appreciate you guys delving into the curriculum because, as you know, I do. I've delved into the books. I care about what my children are learning about and what they're reading about. I don't like to stand up here and talk. I don't like to be the center of attention. I don't like putting a negative light out there because there's so many positives in this district that outweigh any minimal negatives. But what does any of this have to do with English? We need people to look into this curriculum. I know a lot of parents don't have the time, may not know how, or their
3
kids.
minutes, just-
Okay. I appreciate it, and I need you guys to keep delving because sometimes what you find isn't what you thought it was. So, thank you.
Apparently, I don't know how to shut my alarm off. I don't know why it's doing that. I'm trying. It's not letting me. Like, Siri, you see me pushing it. Oh, there. There we go. Sorry. No? Okay. Apologize. All right. Moving on, board discussion for the good of the district.
I'm sure by now most of you have heard about the tragic shooting of the sheriff, Oakland County Sheriff, that happened over the weekend, and that he was a Romeo graduate. If you want to help support the family, I mean, there's multiple things that are being out on social media, but I kind of wanted to give our community something local. You can give checks directly, hand them in at the athletic office at the high school, writing his name on the memo line, and they can help you with that. So I believe our high school office is open pretty much year-round, if anybody from the community wants to stop in and do that.
Do they have a GoFundMe or
They do, I know this way, 100% of it would go to the family as opposed to GoFundMe taking a fee, but, you know, there's multiple ways to give to this family, but, you know, if you read into it, it's just very heartbreaking.
Just to clarify, though, summer hours at the high school, are they not there on Fridays? I mean, some might be, but the doors might be locked.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
just Monday through Thursday.
We're happy to help at
Yeah.
the board office, so.
Anyone else? All right, can I have a motion to go into closed session for the purpose, oh,
Sorry, I had one more thing. I don't know if this is the place to do it, but can we propose a board workshop for the month of July? I know, Dr. Robinson, you said that we possibly need to meet to go over the superintendent evaluation. I just think it might be a good time before the craziness of the school year starts up to take, you know, a pause and do that as a school board. So I don't know if that's something that can be done. I know it's summer and people have busy schedules, but I'm just putting it out there as an idea.
I support it.
and the top, I'm sorry, just,
Yes.
what topic did you have?
Just a general topic that maybe isn't, I know the
Oh, I thought you
board
said
concerns.
evaluation,
Okay.
so I
No,
didn't know
no,
if
I
that's
just know
what
that
it
you
was.
said that we need to meet as that anyway, so I don't know if it can be tacked on to that. You know, so not to duplicate a bunch of meetings, but to have, you know, a board-generated agenda, just various board topics. I know, Mr. Antoine, you sent out a list, and some of those have been tackled, but maybe we can, you know, use that as a springboard even. Just an
So
idea.
do y'all use Doodle?
Doodle?
Like a way to,
I doodle.
instead of trying to.
It's like a poll that you send
Yeah,
out via
poll,
email.
because it is, you know, I can be there before 5, I can only be there after 5, you know, it might just be better if there's 4 or 5 dates, and then you can just see who can be there when, and,
Doodle it, but I'll get it.
okay, it's just a little,
Is it an app?
yeah, it's just a,
I know stuff.
all right. Can I have a motion to go into closed session for collective bargaining?
Support.
Moved and supported, that was Demus and Antoine. And can I have roll call when you're ready?
Mr. Antoine?
Yes.
Mrs. Sonic?
Yes.
Mr. Connor? Yes. Dr. Demus?
Yes.
Mrs. Weispar?
Yes.
I'm a yes. And Mr. Young?
Yep.
All right.
I can't
We are not voting on anything, so. Right. Yes,